How's it going, everybody? My name is Spencer Ostrowski, and I am the host of the Delivering Sports Show. Today, I have a guest on with me. It's my best buddy, Kevin Kelly. Say hello.
What's going on, party people?
Okay, yep. And today, we're going to be going over kind of the big news of the day, I guess you could say, for the NBA. Bigger than the playoff game tonight against Portland, I would say.
The one that they're currently about to blow, by the way. It's a 4-point game.
As we're doing this, we are missing Portland blowing the lead as they have. And we appropriately predicted that the Portland Trailblazers would win like one quarter in this entire series, and that was about it. So it all works out in the end.
On to Magic Johnson.
In any case, yes, the big news today was Magic Johnson going on First Take. First, I would say like everyone said this was like a big hot topic, like he was scorching fire, and I guess what he said was pretty intense, but like I wouldn't call it like anything too intense. He was really just going on and speaking his piece rather than kind of burning bridges or trying to start something more than what it was. It's just who he is.
It was a simple spilling of the tea, as we say.
I mean, he's probably a little more open than you would like most people are, but he is a celebrity. Most celebrities don't own like the president's spot, like presidencies or GM spots of teams. So it's a little weird, I guess, to hear from him. But again, he's such a big like face. Obviously, he's a billionaire on his own accord with all his businesses. So I wouldn't call it something like crazy.
The thing that like surprised me the most was like just how willing he was to like pull back the curtain and really just give them like an unabridged like recollection of the timeline of events of him being the president of the Lakers. Essentially just not throwing people under the bus because he's not really in a position to throw anyone under the bus anymore, but like just saying like just airing out essentially all the dirty laundry.
He did lay one person under the bus actually. If you really want to break it down, and that would be Mr. Rob Pelinka.
Rob Pelinka's quaking.
He, interestingly enough, Stephen A. Smith kind of gave him Magic the opportunity to kind of blanket the blame and not kind of put it too hard on one person. He said, "Oh, when you talked about backstabbing, did you think like, oh, were you only talking about Rob Pelinka, or are you kind of talking about everybody?" Kind of suggesting like, "Hey, like this is kind of your way out, like." So that way no one looks too bad.
He said, no, it's just Rob Pelinka.
He literally came out and said, no, it is only Rob Pelinka. And I was like, wow, he really hates that guy. And I really think that was probably the most significant quote of the entire story, because that whole first speech that came out of nowhere when he was like, I'm resigning, everyone's like, whoa, backstabbing, what's going on? Like, is it ownership? Was it his relationship with Rob Pelinka? And he came out and said, he cleared the whole story up. There's no doubt in anyone's mind now that he hates Rob Pelinka, and it was his fault that he left, essentially.
I would say, like, obviously we've only heard one side of this story. Obviously we've only heard Magic's side of it. But the way he tells it, it's that, like, the kind of the moves that the Lakers made, kind of like, obviously trading Lonzo was the brainchild of Magic Johnson. And I think the jury is still out on that, considering Lonzo is going to be heading into his third year. And I don't think his story is written as an NBA player yet. But like, the other moves that they made, trading for Kuzma, essentially getting Josh Hart, those I think can like be looked at as objectively good moves. And so it kind of like brings about the question, like, would they have been better off firing Pelinka instead of Magic?
Well, the thing is, like, we have a track record of what Magic Johnson has done, and we can almost say in almost every situation it was a positive move. We have nothing for Rob Pelinka to defend him for. There isn't much to go after. All we know about Rob Pelinka is that Demps hated dealing with him, and it ruined this trade. I think he did have a lot to do with it. Magic said Demps ultimately was the one who leaked it, but
no goodwill there.
We know that he says that Demps had ended up coming out and saying that he doesn't trust Rob Pelinka, and that was a big reason why the deal didn't go through. So, and we know everyone within the Lakers organization still likes Magic Johnson, and he even came out and said he had no bad relationships with anyone else. So even Jeannie Buss, of course, who was like probably the most important relationship, everyone was wondering if he was going to throw her under the bus, and he ultimately didn't. The only time that he kind of mentioned it, the whole situation, is when he was talking about the firing of Luke Walton. He had went to ownership and said, "Hey, I want to fire him." Jeannie kind of gave him the heads up. He was like, "All right, cool. Like, I like it. Let's do it. It's your decision ultimately." And then he said the next day they came back and told him no. And then they had brought in other pieces of ownership, and even they denied that. So in reality, he really didn't put it too much on Jeannie. And again, the main focus was on Rob Pelinka the entire time. So personally, I think that they should have fired Rob Pelinka. He clearly doesn't have... He has a smart basketball mind when it comes to negotiating NBA contracts, but when it comes to running an organization, he has no track record. And the Lakers don't have time for Rob Pelinka to form into something. And now that he has such a bad relationship with all these other teams, it would have been worse. And if you keep Magic, you at least give yourself the opportunity to bring in more big free agents. And it makes the Lakers look like a strong organization, keeping some guy who's been loyal to the franchise, who has come here, said, I'm only going to be here for 3 years, and I want to bring in free agents. And I think people could have bought behind that. But how are people going to buy behind Rob Pelinka is the problem.
I think like ultimately aftermath of this is kind of just the only really thing that is definitive. The only thing that's really definitive after all of this is that like the Lakers look more like a joke than ever.
I don't know if it's so bad as a joke. They just look indecisive, and they kind of jump the gun a lot. And
I mean, that's what joke franchises do.
I guess I don't. Jokes I see as doing silly things. This is just kind of making a bad decision, in my opinion.
I feel like truly messy teams and organizations they represent that in their front office. It's a poison from the head down kind of situation, and I think the Lakers do not have their front office in order in any kind of way, and I think that's going to trickle down into the team until they can finally like get some semblance of, like they can all get onto the same page at some point.
I think at the very least, if Magic's leaving, you at least have to fire Pelinka and go from there, and not focus solely on hiring the next head coach, which was really where they shifted their focus, and I think that was a big problem.
Well, this like all leads to the ultimate, like, there's something coming up very imminently, and it's like the Lakers somehow lucked into the number 4 overall pick, and now it kind of begs the question of just like there's this new they're kind of starting over the LeBron era. They're kind of trying to wipe last year from the record. What do they do with this number 4 pick?
It's a lot of that, and so they have the number 4 pick, which is obviously a lot better than what they would or could have ever hoped for. I mean, if you get number 1, obviously, that changes everything. But getting 4 is still a very big deal. They had a very small chance of doing so. So now that they have the number 4 pick, they think that their chances of getting Anthony Davis are a lot higher. The only problem is how willing is David Griffin to talk to Rob Pelinka about this trade, because he's obviously going to be the one orchestrating it now because Mag Johnson's not there. And I think the problem comes in terms of what I think David Griffin would be stupid to close his ears and avoid the Lakers, because they can offer an interesting trade package as opposed to other teams. Obviously, the Knicks will be in the mix, but in terms of the top competitors, I think they can offer a better deal than the Celtics. The Celtics have 3 picks in this year's draft, but all 3 of them are not scheduled to be very good at all, which is a problem. And they acquired all these trades, but none of them worked out. The one very pretty valuable trade asset they had was the Grizzlies pick this year, which would have been around 8, and now the Grizzlies move up to 2. So now they just have these 3 picks that mean nothing, that they're not going to be able to trade because no one's too interested in this draft, I would imagine, unless something crazy happens. So it's between the Knicks and the Lakers right now, and it's possible that David Griffin's look, all this mess with the Lakers was so bad last year, we're not even going to deal with the Lakers, and it's just going to close it off. We're going to see what the Knicks and what the Celtics can offer us. But if he was a smart man, and everyone, anytime you ever hear someone say the name David Griffin, the word smart is in the same sentence, so everyone calls him a smart guy, it would be dumb of him not to at least listen to the Lakers, no matter what had happened last year. If they can get a deal done for it between the Lakers, I think it makes both franchises look better. It looks like both franchises are growing and that they can actually do business in the league.
The lottery changed everything for this situation, just because.
No kidding. We were talking about the Knicks trading Zion Williamson to the Pelicans for Anthony Davis, and now the Pelicans have Zion Williamson.
Essentially, yeah, and so
crazy.
Yeah, it comes from a place of the Pelicans have no leverage; they're going to end up getting pennies on the dollar back for Anthony Davis. And now they were like, we have Zion Williamson. There's not much more. Your Godfather offer essentially is nothing now compared to what we already have.
You can't offer Zion if he's on your team.
Exactly. So it's like the pointing meme.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't really. It is. I agree that it's between the Lakers and the Knicks. I feel like people are overvaluing what package Boston has to offer. I think they instantly lose a lot of their package loses a lot of their appeal once Kyrie Irving leaves, because I definitely think he's going to leave regardless of where he ends up actually going. I think he's done in Boston. But once he goes, it kind of is slim pickings for what you can kind of trade for Anthony Davis and then expect him to play around and then say oh, here's Marcus Morris and here's Terry Rozier on an overpaid, like, matched restricted free agency contract.
And that's the thing. Like, David Griffin's going to demand Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in this trade
Exactly.
package, and that just seems backwards for Boston because even if the trade goes through and Anthony Davis is in Boston, there's no guarantee that Kyrie stays. It looks like he wants to leave, and he's kind of already made his decision. So once you trade your two best young players, and you just have Anthony Davis, and it's almost like the Pelicans become, like the Celtics become the Pelicans of the East, where they just have a bunch of guys who are pretty good that aren't good enough to elevate Anthony Davis to the next level and like bring him to a finals appearance.
Instead of Zion Williamson, they have Robert Williams.
Exactly. That's the difference. And so, in my opinion, the Celtics are out. Like their greatest trade asset is the Grizzlies' next year pick, which could end up
Going back to the Grizzlies.
Because it's top 3 protected. So even then, that the asset isn't as valuable, and the Grizzlies are slotted to be the worst team in the league next year once they trade Mike Conley. I mean, John Morant and Jaren Jackson are good, but certainly not enough to.
They're children.
They're going to be the worst team in the league probably, other than the Cavs. But again, they'll be slotted very like in good place to be the first overall pick. So the Celtics, in my opinion, are out. It's between the Lakers and the Knicks, and it's up to David Griffin.
It's just wonderfully ironic because I do think between the Knicks and the Lakers have a much better and more attractive package. Yeah, the 4 pick isn't as valuable as the 3 pick in this draft specifically, but the package of young players you can offer, as well as just like as far as prospects of re-signing Anthony Davis goes. I mean, like why? As long as they don't trade LeBron James, you can count on Anthony Davis re-signing in Los Angeles if they can get that trade done. Compared to the Knicks, the biggest chip in that trade is the number 3 overall pick,
Right.
And maybe Mitchell Robinson. But like,
depends on how much David Griffin values. Ultimately, it ends up being how much does David Griffin value Kyle Kuzma, because he'll end up being the best trade asset within the package. So if he's very high on him, then it looks like the trade's likely. But if he's not too high on him because he thinks he's already reached his ceiling, then it'll be harder for the Lakers to make that deal.
well, I was gonna say like it depends on that, but to even get to that point, you have to figure like where is like the goodwill at this point between the Lakers and the Pelicans negotiations wise, and it really all depends on that, and how fond the Knicks grow of R.J. Barrett potentially throughout the draft process. The Pelicans could end up. I would not bet against Pelicans having Anthony Davis on their roster to start the season next year.
I mean, they're going to wait until they get the package that they want because the Pelicans aren't in a rush anymore because now they have Zion Williamson. So it's a lot different than it was before because other than that, like, if you don't have Zion Williamson and you're benching Anthony Davis waiting for a trade, it looks a lot worse than when you have this guy out here that people could forget that Anthony Davis is even on this team. So it makes things different. So I'm going to throw a couple hypotheticals with you to kind of end this out. So what do they do with the number 4 pick now? Let's say, do you trade the 4th pick for Kemba Walker straight up?
If you're the Lakers?
If you're the Lakers.
For Kemba Walker. Is Anthony Davis out of the question at this point?
They're unable at the time, like when it comes down to it, they're unable to get Anthony Davis at the day of the draft.
Well, Kemba's going to be unrestricted. This is like a sign and trade kind of deal.
Exactly.
Buddy, I would be. If I was a Lakers fan, I'd be pissed.
Really?
Not that I don't like Kemba Walker, but like, just knowing that was on the deal, or that was on the table, I would draft someone that I think the Pelicans would want, rather than trading it.
What happens if the Lakers roll out next year with Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James? Kyle Kuzma wouldn't be traded, and then whoever they want at center, it'd just be JaVale McGee probably.
JaVale McGee again.
What does that place them in the Western scope? Are they better than Houston?
Yes.
Houston's pretty butt.
Yeah, Houston stinks. I don't like Chris Paul. I think he's gonna have a really big drop off next year. I think they'll be up there in the West, top 4 seed.
How does that the top 4 seed? You don't think that's a number 2 seed? Kemba Walker with Jimmy Butler and LeBron James.
I mean, chemistry is always going to be an issue, especially
with Kyle Kuzma.
I mean, yeah, but like you got to look at the makeup on that team.
Kemba's a perimeter shooter. Kuzma's still a perimeter shooter. LeBron can find him. Jimmy Butler's pretty good too.
I mean, you just got to think about how all those guys work together. Jimmy Butler's had his whole thing with chemistry. That's 3 alphas too. Like guys, not in the sense of they deserve to be the number 1 option, but those 3 guys with alpha mentalities. So
final question: do you go? What if you can guarantee Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler, LeBron, or nothing? Which do you take?
Jimmy Butler, Kemba, or
Like
LeBron.
you either take that or it's over, or like you just roll out with what you had last year.
I would rather have that team than what the Lakers rolled out with this year.
Interesting.
Just running that back, because running that back, you can't really. That's just asking to waste another year of LeBron James, and that should be a crime against humanity.
It's interesting to think about. Well, we're gonna try to keep these little episodes to 15 minutes, so it's not too long. So thanks for listening, guys. Definitely leave your comments below in the comments below. I love talking with you guys. So thank you very much, and we'll see you soon.